what's up? Welcome back to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. This is episode 182, and I'm your host, Shay Haddo. In this powerful episode, I sat down with Michael Locasto. Michael is a human performance energy coach who helps men and women get into alignment with the truth of who they are. He spent 8 years as a strength and conditioning coach for hundreds of elite level athletes, including working with the Arizona Diamondbacks. In this episode, we talked about the importance of not attaching your identity and your self-worth to your sports and to your achievement. We talked about where real confidence comes from. We talked about how you can use your emotions to guide you instead of suppressing them. And we also dove deep into the power of breath work, not just for your physical performance as an athlete, but for your all-around well-being, using it to better connect with yourself and to those around you. And if you are someone who wants to better connect with yourself, to really have a better life, to be a better athlete, then this episode is for you. I enjoyed listening to this episode back. Michael is an amazing, amazing person with such amazing energy, and I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Enjoy. Hey, Michael, what's up? Welcome to the show. Super excited for our conversation today. I know that we were talking off air a little bit, and I know this conversation is going to be one that's really, really in depth, and maybe over a couple of people's head. But like I said in this interview, I think that a lot of people are just going to love being in the energy and being in your energy. And I'm just excited to have you here.
Shay, thank you so much for having me on. And it seems like we've had similar stories on being athletes and feeling like our self-worth and those things are kind of getting rattled. So it's beautiful to share this conversation in this space with you, to really I feel like athletes at times feel like they're alone.
Yeah.
And they're so not. So I acknowledge you for what you bring to this world, and I think it's so important. So thank you for having me on.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. So I want to kind of get into your story a little bit. And I know we're going to be able to pull so many amazing things out of it. So tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you kind of got to where you are.
Yeah. So it's like any little kid that loves playing sports, that drew me in right away. So I loved playing hockey and baseball specifically. Those were my two rotational sports.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was around 10 to 12 years old where I started developing what's called Shorman's disease. It's the hunchback. So if one can think of like Hunchback of Notre Dame, I had this curve in my back, and doctors told me that it was permanent. Wow. And they also told me I wouldn't have back problems till I was 40. And I started having back problems when I was about 14, 15 years old.
Wow.
Went through Western medicine, cortisone injections, chiropractors, rehab stints unsuccessful. It turned out that 5 different doctors misdiagnosed my spine. But all the while I was still attempting to compete. I loved playing. I was a center fielder and a forward. So I just loved playing sports. It was like that one place where I felt like I got this high, this ecstasy, this bliss that I didn't have anywhere else. And when I was 22, I ended up having back surgery, which took me out of the game of baseball completely, which was a really big struggle for me because I had put my identity as being a baseball player. That was the sport I was playing in college. And when I got done with that, it was this really dark space for me for about 2 years, really figuring out who I am. And so luckily for me, I had this passion as being a strength and conditioning coach, which my back, my spine, my physical quote unquote problems, I don't like that word, but right. In this case, I had created this as a problem.
Yeah.
And through allowing my body to heal after back surgery, taking care of myself, I ended up learning how to rehab myself because I just didn't trust anyone else to guide me through this. And I knew there was a part of me that knew that I had the answers, that no one else, people could guide me, but I had the answers. And that really shaped my strength and conditioning career. Ended up working for some major universities, and then eventually got into the baseball world where I worked with the Diamondbacks. And the physical work that I was doing started going inward. So that was the time really where I started diving deep into the inner world and getting into meditation, because I thought something was wrong with me and all these things. We can go into that, but really like the physical world in the weight room only got me to a certain point. Right. And I realized that I put a lot of my own self-worth that I took from baseball and put it into strength and conditioning. That's really where I felt like I was important, where I felt needed. And when I left that world to do transformational inner work, help people with their mindset, it was really then where I started the transformational work, because no athletes were coming to me. No one was like seeking my help. And so I started doing my own work really deeply after I left in 2019. And now I'm in the space now where I share this work in the form of coaching and breath work. So breath work has been something that has truly helped me transform from the inside out. So
this is awesome. There's so many awesome things that I want to pull out of your story. First thing being, because I really struggled with this as well, is your identity was tied up in baseball. And when you lose that, it's like, who am I? You really lose a part of who you are. And I think that happens a lot with, I even had a girl that I work with that had an injury and is kind of going through the same kind of, as you say, we know they say problems, but going through this, the same circumstance of not really knowing who she is. So I would love to hear your take on, I guess, how you started to shift your identity from I am an athlete, I am a baseball player, to like, I am so much more than what I do.
Such a good question. And I don't know if there's like one particular moment. I do remember 2016, I went to the Landmark curriculum, which is like this transformational programs. And I got to introduce to transformational type language of like, for instance, I'm not the idea of who I take myself to be, which there's a lot of unpacking that can happen from that. But the thing that we relate to the world from, like, you look at me, my name is Michael. I have this story, this history. I have this collection of events that have happened, transpired in my life. And I'm not those things. Now, hearing that's one thing, but energetically shifting the emotions around that is a completely different thing. So I can imagine with the athlete that's going through an injury, they're wondering that question, who am I? Because I've put my identity as an athlete.
Right.
And if that's my identity and I'm not playing sports, well, there's a disconnect inwardly with us. And so I don't know when the major shift was, but I remember listening to Peter Crone. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yes, he's amazing. Yeah.
He was a mind consultant with the Diamondbacks when I was working there. And my first opportunity to just get a glimpse of his work was so transformational for me. I remember being in a room, and with the Diamondbacks, I was so nervous in my skin. I was this high-strung, high-stress, fight-flight guy, drinking 4 cups of coffee a day. And I remember I said something like, I should do something. And Peter was like, no shoulds. Should is a judgment. And I remember after that, I started diving into this world. And I think the thing that athletes in particular, like if I could go back and speak to my high school self, if I could tell him, I would tell him that the world that's happening out here is not responsible for how I feel. And this piece it's really everything. If one can start breaking free from the idea that someone could make them upset. For instance, if I'm driving a car and someone cuts me off in traffic, and this anger swells up inside, and I point to them and I make them responsible for this anger, I'm now in a powerless place.
Yeah.
Because now I'm angry at something out here that I have no control over.
Mm-hmm.
So the person cutting me off in traffic is not responsible for my anger. They're merely revealing anger that's inside of me. And now what I do with that, that's really where one can start breaking free from the idea that their circumstances are creating their inner state. And now bring this to athletes.
Yeah.
Athletes, they have a tendency, and I'm speaking to myself too. We have a tendency when things are going well, amazing. Like, I feel great. I'm
Yeah.
on top of the world. But the moment the statistics, the results don't go the way they want it, well, how does one deal with that? So I'd love to ask you, like, how do you work with athletes in getting them to see that they aren't their results?
Yeah, I love this conversation so much because it really is like we talk about, especially with social media, right? There's a lot of triggers, so to say. And we see this negative comment. Let's use that as an example. We see a negative comment and we get upset, right? And we like start to, and then we react and we get into this like angry state. But I'm like, that's actually a great opportunity for you to slow down and look at what that's like, what's that hitting inside of you, because it's not what they said or what they did, it's what that hit inside of you. Right. So I try to teach my girls, like we talk about emotions all the time and kind of, how to handle the emotions of just being a teenage girl, of just being a human being. Right. And one of the things that we work on is like when you feel that emotion, that anxiety, that anger, that, feelings of lack of self-worth or whatever it is, it's like, don't go distract yourself. Like really just try to sit with the feeling, even if it's for just 1 minute. Put your phone away and just sit there and just feel the feeling and see if it's bringing up anything inside of you. Because I think we're taught as kids to suppress, suppress, suppress. And then we have all this pent up anxiety and this anger and this, you know, whatever it is, because we never knew how to properly be with it and express it. So that's one thing that I've been really working on a lot, with my girls and the stuff I do is like, we need to learn to be with our emotions, to allow our emotions, to accept our emotions. And so I love how, you were really, really hitting deep with this, because I think it's so important that we need to start looking within instead of always looking outside of ourselves.
Beautifully said. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the trigger really is the gift. If people can
It
get
is.
that, it
Yes.
it truly is the gift, no matter how painful it is. And some of those things that swell up or come up from outer events, they're really painful. They're really tender. Emotions are there's some really unpleasant emotions a part of this human experience. And if we can allow them space, exactly what you said, space to just be with them without attempting to change them. It's one of my favorite quotes is from this guy, Jiddu Krishnamurti. He was a pretty bright and wise thinker. He says the ability to observe without judgment is the highest form of human intelligence. And it's like
Yep.
just that awareness, just the awareness. Oh, I'm aware of this.
Yeah.
And now if one wants to get really in depth, if they're aware of something and it's coming into their experience, well, inevitably it's going to go.
Right.
And if they were that thing, so we put our identity in things that are transient, changing. If we were that thing, we would go with it.
Yes.
So we speak about fear. I am scared, but our words are so powerful.
Mhm.
And now saying I am scared, I would question the validity of that statement, because now we are putting our identity in something that we could actually never be.
Yeah.
And I don't know a human being on this planet who doesn't experience fear. But
Right.
but fear can be in our experience. We can actually allow fear to be in our experience and still be in a place of power. So
I think I don't want people to overlook what you just said and not saying I am scared. I am anxious. You're not. You feel scared. You feel anxious, but you aren't those things. And that kind of ties it back into identity, right? And like I am a soccer player. No, you're not. Like you're not even your name, right? Because those things can change. And then we could go like crazy deep on just like identity and all that kind of stuff. But what advice would you have for, let's say, a high school athlete that is either got injured and isn't going to play their sport anymore, or maybe they're just done playing their sport after high school? What advice would you have for them and how to really, I don't know if detach is the right word, but maybe detach from that, sole identity of an athlete and just really connect with who they really are?
yeah, I think it's such an important and delicate process because so many, I know us men,
Yeah.
we tend to do things alone.
Right.
We're like these
Absolutely.
lone wolves of feelings and emotions. Oh, I
Mhm.
can't be with that. But there's
Mhm.
clearly emotions are this piece of our human experience that I think is the most important. And emotions are intelligence. They're not something to be avoided. They're not something to be pushed away. They're actually helping us to reconnect. And I think this is what we're actually all after, whether we're an athlete or in the business world, we're a mother, no matter what we're doing, what we crave most is connection.
Mhm.
Connection first with self and then with others. So if I'm an athlete in high school that I'm done playing sports, know that whatever that person's about to go through experience is not a mistake. And
Mhm.
I think people we give things like depression, anxiety, some of these mental health diseases, we
Right.
give them a bad name, but I don't know a human being on this planet that doesn't experience that or
Mhm.
who hasn't experienced that. It's actually a signal. So these things are really just signals to help guide us in our life, to lead us towards the things that actually fill us up. So
Yeah.
I can speak to my own experience when I was done playing sports and when I was in college. I was a college kid that liked to party, and that it was clear that my partying was an avoidance of deeper layers of unexpressed emotions in me, repressed emotions.
Mhm.
So so know that when one is done in athletics, that there's probably some emotional residue
Yeah.
and transformational work. It's for all of us human beings if we choose it.
Yeah.
We choose it. It's or it could choose us. I mean, one or the other. So
Yeah.
know that there is this nurturance when we become intimate with our own emotional state, to where we become more emotionally resilient, more emotionally available. We are less easily poked and triggered and like taken off our path. So
Mhm.
I don't know if that helps at
Yeah,
all, but
it does. And I'm going to play the, middle school, high school, athlete here and say, okay, how do I better connect with myself? How do I better connect with my emotions?
yeah. So with this, I think we have to start taking a peek at our present moment experience and how our present moment experience is actually impacting us. This is the first place to start, is awareness.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of a girl that I worked with that really struggled. Her analogy that she came to me with was she was a Ferrari stuck in a garage.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
and she was this talented soccer player, but yet when she was on the field, there were like these parking brakes and these restrictions in her.
Mm.
And really what she was alluding to was some deeper level of fear, of inadequacy, of not enoughness. So there was a self-limiting belief that was coming up in the form of her coach, because if
Mm.
she made a
Right.
mistake, her coach would take her out of the game.
Yeah.
So now she's something's wrong with me. And she's not doing this consciously. This is happening underneath the surface. And now we could go back to when she was younger and her first experience of this. This is really where the work begins, is going back to our history, because our greatest addiction is our history. It's our memory. So if we can go back to those times where we first created the identity of not enoughness, of not accepted, of not worthy, and we can go on and on. When we start to honor those pieces of ourselves, we can start becoming whole. We can experience the wholeness that we already are. So
yeah, and I can so relate to that. I felt the same way as her when I played, and I've been doing a lot of like inner work, looking at my inner child of when I was young. It was my self-worth was completely tied up in my performance, and just barely, like I'm just barely like breaking that kind of belief. But I think that's so common for athletes specifically when they start out at a young age. It's like, when I perform well, I get love. When I perform well, mom and dad are happy. When I perform well, I'm good enough. And then when they don't, it's like they totally, they have this huge, very strong tie between level of performance and achievements and self-worth, right? And would you say that that was something that you kind of experienced in your childhood as well?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's where all these
Yeah.
subconscious beliefs get really embedded.
Yep.
And this now creates our perception of the world.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for you, I mean, I can say, you know, what I've done, but for you, what are some things, practices, rituals, whatever that you've done to help you kind of unlearn that belief that your self-worth is tied to your performance or your, you know, achievements?
I mean, I've pretty much tried everything. So
Perfect.
yeah. I think that the thing that initially helped me the most first was meditation,
Yep.
was just taking my energy from out here and just focusing on myself. And then like something as simple as that, now we can actually become aware of what's actually happening in our inner world. We can become aware of the thoughts, because inevitably the thoughts aren't the problem. It's the energy underneath the thoughts, right? Like thoughts are meaningless until there's a charge.
Yes.
And the moment there's a charge, now, all right, what is that charge? Can I be with this charge? If not, and for me, it was like meditation connected me with my emotional body, with
Mm-hmm.
some of the uncomfortable emotions, like shame,
Oh, yeah.
like guilt.
Yep.
And I think those are the two things that drive performers to want to be perfect.
Agree.
Because if they're not perfect, then how does one deal with this shame? So really we need strategies in the world to be able to process these emotions, to be able to relate with our emotions that no one gave us the tools for.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for me, something as simple as meditation. I love breath work. Breath work's the simple way to get energy moving, to start feeling again, bringing awareness back into our bodies. And really what I'm speaking to, the place where I'm speaking to, is so many of us, we're just stuck. Our awareness is stuck in the 6 inches between our ears.
Yeah.
And athletes play their sport in their body. So
Yes.
when one can start bringing awareness back into their body, like a simple belly breath, something as simple as that, or breathing and feeling, as opposed to breathing and thinking,
Yes.
we can start retraining our nervous system to unwind these patterns that really keep us in a state of fear. And we can start now being the co-creator of our experience. So, but the thing that's helped me the most is getting in a transformational space with a coach, going
Yeah.
one-on-one and doing the deep work
Yep.
to feel, to cry, to laugh, to express, to see how these pieces of myself, they weren't me. and we aren't our stories. We aren't our narratives that we tell ourselves. And yet they have an impact on us. We can't just put them away and say they're not real. We have to somehow integrate and embrace our humanity. So
this is like, seriously, I get so fired up when talking about this because it's something that literally every single human being needs to do. Like adults, like need to really look at their inner child and go through these emotions because there's so much. Even if you had an amazing childhood, there's still things buried deep down that affect your daily life. And for kids, it's like if a teenager can learn to do this now, can you imagine if you learned how to really be with your emotions and how to connect with yourself? Can you imagine how much better you would have performed as an athlete and just how much happier you would have been?
yeah, it would have been so much
Would
different.
have been a game changer.
It's interesting because this is where I feel the world is going towards.
Yeah.
Like people are starting to connect with
Yeah.
themselves. I mean, you could probably speak to this, like meditation and breath work and some of those tools. They're starting to find their way into the younger and younger generations. Yeah.
Yes. I think it's like starting to be talked about more. And like every time I talk about meditation, like they all know what it is, but every single time it's like, no, I don't want to meditate. It's really hard I think it's hard for everybody to a point,
Yeah.
but I think it's maybe even harder for teenagers. And my theory is that they're just so, I think we're all addicted to our phones in a way, but I think they're just always so plugged in and always so like go, 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 that they really, really have a hard time just being and just being still and listening to silence and stuff like that. So I would love to hear for you because I'm like, I feel like I try to sell people on it, but maybe I'm not a very good salesperson on meditation. So what I guess I want you to sell some high school, middle school athletes. Why is meditation so important?
Yeah. So I'm going to speak to breath work actually first,
Okay, let's
because
speak to breath work.
if I could go back in time,
Yeah.
I would actually start with breath work,
Awesome.
because breath work allows us to move energy. Whereas meditation's this place where it's like, this is boring.
Yes. Okay. I love
Where's
that.
this? So like there's a profound stillness that we can get to after a lot of this energy has moved. The stillness that's I mean, that's a broad topic.
Right.
We'll say it simple here. So yeah, breath work. I mean, speaking about athletes, inner work and performance, the breath is really the thing that allows us to control the nervous system.
Yeah.
And the breath is with us in every experience we've ever had. It's with us. So if one wants to improve their in their sport, I would say that they'd have to become more aware. Awareness is the first step.
It's everything.
Because so many people are stuck in their mind trying to figure out how to get better in their mind. Whereas the body is actually the place where they play their sport and they actually improve.
Yep.
So to me, the athletes that, like, let's take someone that's truly gifted. Let's take a gifted athlete. And with this gifted athlete, this one experiences fear. And we all know how fear can be debilitating for our game. Well, how is one's relationship with the fear? The breath allows us to slowly start to take our attention off our mind and actually take control of the thing that allows us to perform, which is our arousal level or our nervous system state.
Yeah.
And if one really wants to get sold on this from a man's standpoint, right? Like feeling more confident. Yeah. Where does confidence come from? It comes from our being. It comes from a peaceful state, not a go state. That's not confidence. Confidence is actually already here. We don't actually have to train it. We don't have to create it. We just have to discover it. We have to uncover it. So breath allows us to move deeper into ourselves. and access what you called our being. Our being is already here. We are human beings, not human doings, yet somehow we get our self-worth and our value from what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And yet we know when we're in a place of confidence, our mind is quiet.
Mm.
We are in the moment. We're in a state of flow. And if one was to be aware of their breath in a state of flow, I guarantee it is calm, it is relaxed, it is expanded, it is open.
Mm.
So for me as a little boy, like as a high school boy that was fixated on like thinking about women, like that was literally where my mind was, women in sports.
Yeah.
If I could sell myself, if I could go back in time and say, hey, buddy, if you learn how to control your breath, you're actually going to feel more confident speaking with people, especially women, especially the ones that you've trained yourself to be scared of.
Right.
So it's like the deeper we're able to access into ourselves, the more self-expressed we can be.
I love
and
that.
now we don't really care. We don't care what other people think of us.
Yes.
Because we love ourselves. We feel whole. We feel accepted ourselves. And from that space, we are our best. And if I ask any of my athletes how they feel when they're at their best, it's a state of flow. It's a state of ease. It's a state of like feeling expanded.
Mm-hmm.
One's not worried about, oh, what am I going to eat for dinner? What is my coach thinking in this moment? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So how's
all
that
about
so?
getting back in the body. All about getting back in the body. And what would you say would be a good starting point or a good kind of starting practice for somebody that wants to do this but has never really done breath work before?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if one really wants to get into it, get like a coach, like a breathwork coach. But if one just wants to like just begin it, I would say search YouTube and just type in box breathing.
Yep.
Simple box breathing, which is a steady inhale, a pause, steady exhale, pause. And it's just repeating that.
Yep.
And it sounds so simple, but the more one brings their awareness back to the breath, they're actually training their nervous system to be at ease in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I think athletes think that their game somehow in the future, like I'm going to be my best in the future, but the future only happens right now. So when we stop creating this reality of a utopia of a future that I'm going to be on top of my game in the future, we can start being on top of our game right now. Mm-hmm. And that is, train one's best self in this moment. Because inevitably that's all we have. Is
right. All you have is the moment. Right. And I going to the like breath work practice. So it's something I will do like before meditation and stuff like that. But actually yesterday I have a real life experience. Like when I travel, sometimes I get nervous, or I can just feel like my nervous system is, a bit up. And instead of just like doing breath work when I'm sitting on my couch, I was like, okay, I'm actually going to be really intentional. I did the box breathing while I was on the shuttle to the airport. I did box breathing while I was in the airport, and then on the plane when I felt, the nervous system start to go up a little bit. And within, 5 minutes, within about 5 minutes, I could instantly feel my nervous system come back down. So it's like such an amazing tool to not only connect with yourself and help you perform better, but just in like all of these day-to-day, like moments of stress or anxiety or whatever it is, like it's such an amazing tool.
Yeah, it truly is. That's amazing that you're doing breath work. See, it's a thing one can do in any moment.
Anywhere, right? Like
any moment.
You can do it in class. Let's say you're taking a test, right? And you're like, oh no, I don't know this problem. Like, can you take like those few deep belly breaths and just start to calm yourself down and get out of your head and get into your body, right?
Yes. And I want to make one point, because I think people start breath work and then they stop. To me, breath work is not something one can stop. If one wants to be masterful with the breath, it's just like anything else. one trains it every day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we train our sport every day, but how many of us are training the thing that actually allows us to play our sport? So, I mean, I've been studying the physical world for so long, and it finally took me to the thing that's right under our nose.
Mm-hmm.
And we're the only species on the planet that, as far as I'm aware of, that has the ability to consciously breathe, to actually focus on the breath consciously, and we can influence the breath. And now we can increase endurance level. I mean, there's so many physical benefits we can get out of the breath, but I think the biggest one is the mental, the emotional.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like the one thing, like we can live without food for a while. We can live without water for some time. You know, we can live without exercise for some time, but like we literally can't live without breath for more than a few minutes. So it's crazy how important it is in our daily living, but yet we don't really focus on it, or we don't do it right most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing with there is no, like, the thing with breath work is when one starts doing it, there really is no messing up. There is no, it's just like meditation. You can't mess up meditating.
Right. Yeah. So what would you say is like a good practice, or, you know, because it's literally, there's no finish line ever with inner work, with this stuff. There's no finish line. It's like an everyday evolution. So what would you know, subscribe or prescribe, maybe is the word I was looking for. What would you prescribe as far as like, you know, how many minutes is, you know, really effective? Is it something that needs to be done, you know, at least 10 minutes a day, or like, what would you say as far as that goes?
Yeah, man, I think everything's so individualized in this world nowadays that, like, to me, how much time is one willing to allocate to themselves? And that it could look like breath work, it could look like meditation, but it could also look like changing up one's diet. It could look like journaling. It could look like, you know, instead of going out on a Friday night, like just being, you know, there's so many different ways, taking a walk, going out in nature. There's so many different ways to do this work. Really, really what the importance is to access one's being, where I think in that space, one has access to lasting peace. One has access to inner freedom,
which is
and
the ultimate.
It's the game. I feel like it's the entire game of that we're on. Is to be able to access that part of us that's always here. And that's why so many people speak to the power of the present moment, the power of the now, is because there's something here that's always here, and that's us. That's ourselves. But we're just so disconnected from ourselves. We put ourselves in something that's insecure, that's always changing. And now if we want to know, like, where insecurity comes from, it comes from the idea we take of ourselves, which is always shifting, it's always changing. There is no stability. There's a reason why fear always comes, because we take ourselves to be the clouds. I mean, take the sky, but yet the sky still remains. So and
that's such a good analogy.
So if one wants to start with this work, I mean, if one is really serious about doing inner work, I'd say find someone that's done this work like yourself. And help, like, there's a reason why there's coaches, there's guides helping people through this, is because they've been through it. We've
are
been
still
coached.
Going through it.
Going through it. So like, find someone that one really connects with. And if finances is an issue, well, we have our phones, we have YouTube. One can reach out to you or I, and we could offer resources that are super valuable. But I really think it's dependent on the person themselves, because there's plenty of people that want quick fixes. And this work is not quick fix.
No.
And yet it is the quickest fix. So it's
That's
quite
so
it's
true.
quite a paradox.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
like when you're
So
in it, like I don't know about you, Michael, but when like every day, honestly, the thing that I'm most excited about every day is just connecting more with myself. And just because I know the more I connect with myself, the more I'm uncovering things, like the more peace I have, the more freedom I have. And that just really brings out like my best self to also serve other people. And so it really does, like I know at first when you start doing the inner work, it may be like, oh, I need to do breath work or meditate or whatever. But like once you are in it, I don't know, it's fun. Like I personally, I love it. Like I love it. I'm like, oh, I get to meditate. Not like I have to meditate, but I get to meditate. I get to do this breath work. I get to go through and look at this, past childhood trauma and like whatever it is. Like it's really enjoyable once you're in it, I think. And
yeah,
obviously there's hard times
absolutely.
too, but like overall, it's like every day is something new.
Yeah, and it makes us more resilient. It makes
Mhm.
life more rewarding and
Yeah.
enriching. It's
Yeah.
it's like we allow ourselves to be so that we can come into the world and actually experience the fruits.
Yes.
Yeah, and it goes far beyond the baseball field or the soccer field, or it
So,
goes far beyond that.
mhm.
And so if one actually wants to increase their performance, there's so much more than just the physical world that we that
Yeah.
we somehow get stuck in. There's more
Yeah.
beyond the mental.
Yeah,
And I would say like really, really getting in tune emotionally.
totally.
If one does the emotional work, they will set themselves up
Yep. It's like the hard
for
work, right?
that's it. Yeah, for a better relationship, for potential to find a job that they love doing, making more money, whatever the case,
Yeah.
whatever drives someone,
Yeah.
doing the inner work puts themselves in a position for all those things to happen.
I couldn't agree more. And some people, will not believe that, and that's okay. They'll experience it once they go through it because it can be a slow process sometimes, but it really is just about trusting.
Yeah. And trusting that they are the thing that they're seeking.
Yes, I remember you did a podcast on that a while back, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. Like you are the thing you're looking for, right?
Yeah. So like even meditating or breath work or all these different self-development tools,
Yeah.
practices,
Hmm.
right? Like the common denominator is that oneself is always in it.
Yes.
And the thing that I like, it's taken me a while to get to this place, but the thing for myself that I was always looking for, and it sounds like you've connected so deeply with, is oneself, is
Yeah.
yourself. So
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be meditating. It doesn't
Right.
have to be, it can be whatever one like what makes one come alive,
Yeah.
what makes one feel self-expressed, and not wronging those parts of us that are uncomfortable, like fear, like anger, like shame. Those are wanting to be integrated into our experience. So I think true self mastery is know thyself.
Hmm.
And it's there are no wrong experiences. Everything that we experience wherever we're at in our moment in time is not a mistake.
Mm.
And the more that we come to accept, love, forgive those aspects of ourselves, all of a sudden our world expands, it opens up. the
I love it.
mind can the mind can only get us when we're in a contracted state of being.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the mind can only get us when we identify with our thoughts.
Mm.
So
I
when
love that
when
so much.
when one just becomes aware, the game shifts, it changes. So
I love that so
there's
much.
so many nuances too, and
Mhm.
everyone's so unique.
Yeah.
We all live in different worlds, like we all see a different world. So
So true.
yeah,
Mm.
and we inevitably we only get to experience ourselves. I don't know if this is too high of a concept,
No,
but like
no, no.
we only get to experience ourselves. So what's our relationship
With
with ourselves?
hmm
Yeah.
That's huge. Oh man. So we're gonna leave it at that as far as the conversation goes. But I want to get into and ask you about monk mind because
Mm.
I think that's incredible what you're doing. So just kind of tell us what is it and kind of what's the purpose of monk mind.
Yeah, monk's mind.
Monk's
Yeah.
mind.
Monk's mind is it's embodiment coaching and breathwork training for what I call inner transformation and self-realization. So what does that mean? Really, it's guiding people to their being, guiding people to their inner confidence, their lasting peace, their freedom that's already within themselves. So it's a training system to be able to regulate one's nervous system, to be able to go in the world and express themselves how they want to express, whether that's an athlete in their game or it's a business executive in the boardroom. To me, training one's nervous system is the game to be able to shift one's inner world. That is the inner work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really a synthesis of all the years that I've spent as a strength and conditioning coach, diving into the world of human performance, thinking that the answers I was looking for in my life were externally, and helping people go inward, because there is no roadmap inward. There is like, close your eyes and what does one see? What does one experience?
Right.
And yet somehow the inner world is related to the external world.
Mm-hmm.
The way we feel, our mind and body is somehow related to how we experience our world out here.
Yeah.
So when we start coming into our body and becoming embodied, we start dissolving the stories, the narratives, the judgments, the self-limiting beliefs that we hold on to, because our subconscious mind is stored on our body. So if we want to know where our thoughts come from, they come from how we relate to our temple, our bodies. And now we can go as deep as we want from here, but really, like, the baseline to me is coming back to self, is coming back to being.
So
more being, less doing.
Literally, it's for everyone. Like, do you work with a certain type of person, or who do you work with in the monk's mind?
Yeah, I've worked with anywhere from athletes to business leaders to spiritual seekers. So anyone in between, anyone that feels called and resonates, as I feel like the more we allow life to unfold, it becomes this beautiful unfoldment. The more we're able to just be a co-creator with it. I think there's something that's beating our chest. There's something that's digesting our food. There's something that's growing the forest. There's something that's doing life. And the more we can just connect with that aspect, I think life becomes more harmonious and beautiful. And we don't have to look at our phones to get the dopamine hits. We just, we get a new perspective. Our world shifts. Literally, our eyes change. They change because we stop relating to ourselves as not enough, as fragmented, as separate from life. So we just start becoming whole, and there's this connection. So
And where can people find you, learn more about you? And I love the stuff you put out. So I know everyone else is going to love it too. So where can people find that?
Right now, just Michael.Locasto, Locasto on IG, Instagram.
Awesome.
And then I'm creating Monk's Mind as we speak. It's like I said, it's embodiment coaching. One aspect of it's going to be breathwork coaching. So and just like personal training, one goes to see a personal trainer for an hour. It's an hour of breathwork and meditation and mindfulness tools and certain embodiment practices. And then the last one is long breathwork journeys. So
Awesome.
I would say the embodiment coaching and the last one, long breathwork journeys, that's like deep inner transformational work. And the middle one, just breathwork coaching, is
Yeah.
more nervous system regulation. Just
Okay.
I don't want to call it an intro, but yeah,
Right.
it's kind of like an
Mhm.
introduction into inner work. And really all my work's personalized to whoever I'm
Yeah.
working with. Yeah.
And I also saw that you have an ebook, correct?
I do. I wrote that up in 2020. Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, uh, a lot of the things I teach have shifted, although
Yeah.
there are some powerful
Mhm.
concepts in there.
Yeah.
The last 2 years have been
Yes,
some of
I
the
totally
deepest
agree.
work for myself. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
totally agree. Like my book I wrote in 2019, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're like so much has changed. Like the
Mhm.
principles are still there, but it's like I just have grown and changed so much as a person that that book is like just so different from what I would write right now. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful too, because
Yeah.
it shows to where you were at in your
Yeah.
journey at that time. And
Hmm.
I imagine that so many
Yeah.
humans, and especially female athletes, can relate
Hmm.
to that, where you were at in that
Totally.
particular moment. So
Totally. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I think I could talk to you for hours and hours about this stuff. So maybe we'll have to have you back on one day, but I really appreciate you coming on, and just, your energy is just one that's so like grounding and present. So I really appreciate you being here and being present with us.
beautiful. Shay, thank you so much for having me on. It was such a pleasure. And I mean, yeah, I could speak for hours with you.
We'll
Days.
do it again. We'll do it again.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
All right. Thanks, Michael.